Okay, well, we're going to get started. Welcome, everyone, to Finance Fridays. Good morning. My name is Kindy Kruller. I'm a Senior Program Manager at the Illinois Green Alliance and lead the programs and partnerships of the Building Energy Resource Hub. This is our second Finance Friday in the series. We're really excited to have Summer Corps talking about some of their green lending products. But first, we wanted to share a little bit about the Building Energy Resource Hub. The Building Energy Resource Hub is a project of the Illinois Green Alliance. We are a membership-based organization in Illinois to serve all of the green building needs focused on certifications, training, education, and community building around the green energy space. All right. Well, what is the Hub? We're a new entity. We just turned 1 year old, so that's been exciting. And we have a staff, but we also have a variety of partners. If you want to learn more about the Hub while I'm sharing just a bit more background, you can go into the chat and check out our website. Hopefully, when you registered for this webinar, you also clicked yes if you want to join the newsletter. It's the best place to keep up with all of our most recent news, upcoming events, and our summary of federal and regional resources for you. But the Hub was formed to help identify how to help energy efficiency programs and projects on existing buildings. We're focused on multifamily and commercial buildings, and we do this through extensive partnerships. So if you can see on the diagram, it starts with our staff, which is myself, my colleagues. Thanks, Twyla, for being here today. Our advisors, we have an excellent advisory board, and our partners. We have a DOE grant, a Department of Energy grant with Elevate, the Illinois Finance Authority, which is also the Illinois Climate Bank, the International Code Council, and the City of Chicago. But we also have a variety of technical and education partners, and we're funded through the U.S. Department of Energy, ComEd, and the Builders Initiative. This material today is based upon work supported by the U.S. Department of Energy Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy under the Building Technologies Office. Our goals of the Hub is a variety of initiatives. We want to ensure that all of the building professionals, so this includes property managers, building owners, building engineers, real estate folks, and anyone related to commercial or multifamily properties, understand how to decarbonize and build energy efficiency into their buildings. We also want to support diverse contractors. We're doing this through identifying opportunities for financing, for upskilling, and helping build that pipeline of project work. We're also looking at how to build capacity for advanced codes and policies. And most importantly, which is why we have our Finance Fridays, is we want to streamline and demystify financial resources. Our Hub is focused on helping both the building professionals and the contractors. For the building owners and operators, we're thinking about funding and lending opportunities, such as on-bill financing that ComEd offers. For contractors, we're thinking about upskilling, as I mentioned, such certifications as the Builder Operator Certificate, training from the Midwest Energy Efficiency Alliance. And we're also trying to demystify some of this emerging technology, such as combined heat and power, air-to-water heat pumps, and other new building systems. All of these are ways that we're trying to ensure that we have pathways to decarbonize our buildings. And with that, I would love to introduce one of our presenter today, Kimberly Brisky from Summer Corps. She's going to talk about the SBA 504 loan program and how to finance for your green energy projects. Kim, welcome.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Again, my name is Kim Brisky. I'm with Summer Corps. We'll head over to the next slide. We'll do my little contact information, and then we'll get into the content. So you've got my contact information here. For those of you who might not be familiar with Summer Corps, we are a nonprofit lender certified by the Small Business Administration, the SBA, to originate and service SBA 504 loans. That's going to be the focus of the talk today. But we also administer 2 grants on behalf of the City of Chicago, the Small Business Improvement Fund, or SPIF, as well as the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, NOF. And we do have a couple slides on that for any of our Chicagoland properties here. In general, our mission is just to grow businesses, create jobs, and impactful investment in every community that we serve through access to capital. So I'm going to take off my picture here and we'll go to the next slide. So I think, a few more pieces of information about us, how long we've been around since '92. And not only do we serve the entire state of Illinois with the 504 loan, we also serve select counties in Wisconsin and Indiana. We are also one of the top 15 certified development companies. And you can see sort of by the numbers, our impact that we've had since we've been in business. Next slide. So let's kind of run through the expectations for today. So if you are here, my hope is that you're ready to build, buy, renovate, or refinance commercial real estate or heavy equipment. And we're going to really focus on the 504 program, what it can be used for, the eligibility requirements, how to apply, and how it can advance energy efficiency in your building. We've got kind of a run through of the bullet points here, and then we'll end with some conversation about the City of Chicago grants. Next slide, please. So the SBA 504 program, why is it called that? Well, for anybody here who has interacted ever with government statutes, it's probably just because that's what it's called in the name. That was what the actual legislation was called. It was Section 504 of a bill from 1958. And that program has actually generally been the same structure since 1986. And really the reason why it was created is there was a concern that businesses were not actually being able to access capital. And so this is the actual economic development program. It's not just a lending program, it's an economic development program. And it's unique in that it actually has public policy requirements to be able to participate. And among those are that you're creating jobs or retaining jobs, you're doing community development. We have a focus on minority, women, veteran-owned businesses, or of course, energy efficiency, which we'll focus on today. Next slide, please. So what is the SBA 504 program? So it's a loan and lending solution to help business owners buy, renovate, or refinance major fixed assets. In that case, I'm talking about land, owner-occupied commercial real estate, heavy equipment, and machinery. You cannot use funds from these loans for working capital, inventory, rolling stock like trucks, or operational expenses. The cool thing about this program is that it operates like a public-private partnership with 3 key players. We have you, the business owner, that puts down your down payment, a certified development company like Summer Corps that we provide money on behalf of the SBA, and then a traditional third-party lender like a bank comes in with the rest of the financing. On the right there, we can see a comparison. Let's say we have a $2 million project. Normally, if you just go to a bank to be able to get financing to do this kind of work, it would end up being a 25% borrower contribution downstroke, 75% for the lender. If you are able to use the 504 loan, most of the time you'll end up only putting 10% down. The SBA will come in with 40% and the bank will come in with 50%. Next slide, please. There are some exemptions to when you only have to put 10% down, and that's going to be if it's a startup business, then that adds 5%, or if it's also a single-use building. A single-use building would be something like a gas station or something like that could not be easily transformed into another industry business. Next slide, please. Additionally, the 504 program can also be used as a refinance tool. Let's say that you actually already own the space. You can leverage your built-up equity and take money out for eligible working capital expenses. This is the one opportunity where you actually can use the money in a more flexible way. That cash out piece ranges up to about 20% of the appraised value of the property. So things you can do are things like salaries and inventory, business line of credit. Ineligible is going to be capital expenditures, personal expenses, things like that. Next slide, please. So I want to kind of pause here because this is most recently on September 5th, every month, the rates, interest rates for what it would cost to actually fund the loan come up for the SBA 504. We just had it on September 5th. As you could see here, our 25-year fixed term rate right now, if a loan funded this month, is 5.76%. Obviously, I think if you compare that to other interest rates that you see right now, it is definitely below interest. We also have 20-year terms and 10-year terms as well. That's typically going to be for your heavy equipment. Next slide, please. So we kind of touched on some of the benefits here as to why, as a small business owner, you would be really interested in using this product, but let's kind of dig a little bit deeper. Again, I mentioned that even in a high interest rate environment, the 504 effective interest rate is below market. That means the portion of the loan that the SBA is funding at 40% typically is going to be at a fixed below market rate. While the bank has the opportunity to set their own interest rates, they are limited in how high it can be. But overall, your effective rate of your loan will be lower. Again, less money down. As I mentioned before, you can put as little as 10% down for your for this project, and that's going to free up the extra capital to be used in actually operating your business rather than having to pay it off, or rather than having to put it right into the financing right away. Payment predictability. So again, we've talked about it's a fixed 25-year rate, as opposed to a lot of other financing where it's a variable rate or where the terms are shorter. This can be up to 25 years fixed. Obviously, we've talked a little bit about just the benefits of actually building ownership versus renting a space. This is where you're actually going to be able to build the equity and be able to build your own personal wealth, not somebody else's. Property control. Now, this one's really important, obviously, for this conversation today. Able to customize the property, expand as needed, and create lasting assets. So also, it's really a great future-proofing tool. You can make sure that your building is set up for how you want it to be going forward. Plus, there are also valuable tax advantages and deductions that you'll be able to access. Next slide, please. So let's dig a little bit deeper into the SBA 504 Green Loan Program. So when we talk about the 504, it can be used for all sorts of industries. Pretty much if it's legal federally, it will be a legal industry to be able to do the 504 program. And it doesn't necessarily all have to be about green loan, but really the SBA has just recently really renewed its support for clean energy investment through the existing loan programs, and you're really using them as a tool to drive that. The administrator just over the summer, she had that quote there. It really is going to leverage those federal loan programs that we already do to try to make this clean energy transition. So obviously, if we know the federal government has this as a priority, that means there's going to be opportunities to take advantage of it for your business. Next slide, please. Let's talk a little bit more about how the Green Loan Program in the 504 works. So it's a great opportunity for anybody to incorporate the energy efficient elements into their existing commercial real estate projects. In addition to all the other benefits that I just talked to about the 504 loan, the fixed rate, the low rate, long terms, green loan projects are eligible for some additional benefits. Number one is the SBA maximum contribution increases to 5.5 million from 5 million with no maximum project limit. So this means that at this point, when we're doing an SBA 504 loan, that 40%, traditionally that maximum amount that the SBA can come in with is 5 million. But in the case of a green project, it can be 5.5 million. And the total project size, there is no limit. That means that if you actually want to do a project that would be 20 million and the bank is willing to participate, that's okay. Just the max of what the SBA will put in is 5.5, and the bank can put in more if they're willing. Additionally, there's the aggregated lending, meaning the entire lending that you're doing now can actually be, there's no more cap. So now you can have multiple SBA 504 green loans with no cap. As long as the maximum contribution from the SBA for each loan doesn't exceed 5.5, you can continue to have more loans. So this was a huge project. It used to be that it was a cap at 16.5 million aggregate on projects, and now that cap is completely removed. Next slide, please. To be eligible for a green loan, borrowers must meet one of these metrics. One would be reducing energy consumption by at least 10%. That's compared to your historical consumption through building upgrades. Another one would be generate at least 15% renewable energy at your space, solar, wind, geothermal, through property upgrades. Additionally, there's the option of increasing the use of sustainable design, including a design that reduces the use of greenhouse gas emitting fossil fuels. So that's another sort of way that you can meet that standard. Again, these are the public policy requirements by the SBA to meet the Green Loan Program standards to get those benefits. And it's important to note here that an energy audit and estimates from the vendor that's providing the renewable energy equipment is required at the time your loan is being submitted to the SBA. And so I know that if an energy audit is something that you are not sure how to access, that's another great resource that we actually can talk about here with Kindy later on of how you can access that type of resource. Next slide, please. So now let's dig into a couple of examples so you can see in real time the impact of these loans. So we actually had a ground up construction of a car dealership in Libertyville. So the original building was built in the 1980s, and he chose to meet the green loan requirement by replacing his existing facility with a new one that uses at least 10% less energy. The new location used LED and motion sensor lights, and he installed the HVAC system so it shut off whenever the garage doors opened. I'm sure you can imagine that a 1980 structure versus one completed in the 2020s has quite a significant difference in their energy footprint. The reason why this borrower decided to do that is he wanted to increase his max available debenture, so the amount of money the SBA could put in on his behalf to $5.5 million. And he also plans to do future SBA 504 loans for his other dealerships. And because he was able to use this under the Green Loan Program, that will not count against his aggregate cap limit because there is none with green loan programs. Next slide, please. We've got another example here. So Alpha Technico, I've got pictures coming up here shortly. So they are a durable medical equipment manufacturer. And we had a SBA 504 deal with them. And it was a ground up construction, 78,000 square foot building. Total project size was over 13 million. And they actually would have fulfilled the green loan requirements, but actually fulfilled the manufacturing related policy goal. But it's still on his own decided to really use these SBA 504 loans funds for environmental friendly goals. Most of it was about the materials that he used in terms of the high R value insulated concrete walls, HVAC, VOC free paints, and also the really big investment that he made was the rooftop solar panels. 444 installed on a specifically reinforced roof here. So now they actually have a fully solar powered building. And because of this work that they did, they actually were awarded a prize by the Illinois Real Estate Journal recently for their design. Next slide, please. And you can see the pictures here. I think it's cool. You can see the overhead, the solar power work that they did. They also made a really purposeful effort on the landscaping, even just to make sure there were enough trees and things, because they pretty much everything on the land was flattened down to be able to do the ground up construction. So they really put the effort in. In the interior, you can see the lighting that was used and things like that to make this a green building. Next slide, please. So if this sounds like something that you would be interested in for your small business, here are a couple things to kind of get you started. We encourage folks to first have a conversation with their business lender. If you already have a business banker, to say, hey, I'm really interested in purchasing a building or retrofitting my building and using the SBA 504 Green Loan Program to do it. If you don't have a business banker that you have a good relationship with, feel free to reach out to us at SummerCore first, and we can help connect you. We're going to ask for, some pretty key information that I think is typical for most financing tools. That's going to be your last 3 years of corporate tax returns, interim financial statements, projections, as well as personal financial statements and federal income tax returns personally. And we're going to want to understand exactly sort of what the project costs are including. So making sure we have that breakdown in the estate appraisal and any environmental reports that are required. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned at the top, in addition to doing the SBA 504 loan, we also administer 2 grants on behalf of the City of Chicago, the SPIF grant and the NOF grant. They're both run through the Department of Planning and Development, and they are really focused on small business permanent building improvements. Residential projects are not eligible. It's really important to note that these are reimbursement grants, so you will have to be able to complete the work up front, financing it, and then you'll be able to get a grant on the end. I think it's also important to note that we do have folks who use both the 504 loan as well as the grant together. So maybe you're able to get the loan, do the work, to put the work up front, and then you'll be able to actually access the grant. So that if sometimes the timing does work, that you're able to use both. Eligible types of work can be things like roofing, storefront, build outs, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, all those kinds of system upgrades. The maximum grant that you can receive ranges from $75,000 to $250,000, depending on the property type, if it's multi-tenant, industrial, commercial, single occupant. And we can, if you have specific questions about that, I encourage you to go visit our website on that, or we can answer those later. Next slide, please. So if you're actually wanting to use the SPIF and NOF grants, here are some examples of eligible work that we can cover. There isn't necessarily a green loan, or excuse me, a green grant focus, but I think that a lot of business owners take advantage of these grants to use them for their energy efficiency upgrades. Things like solar panels, LED lighting, energy efficient windows and doors, system upgrades, and energy efficient building materials. These are all things that could potentially support your energy efficiency goals through the grant program. If you're not sure, or there's other things, feel free to reach out to us specifically about eligibility of your expenses. The great thing about SPIF is that environmental remediation can also, in certain cases, be covered, as well as the cost of an energy audit. I know that we'll talk a little bit more about energy audits here with Kindy, but there is that option as well, that you're able to get that included in your grant. Next slide, please. I wanted to show here a sample project that we had as a produce wholesaler in the back of the Yards neighborhood in the City of Chicago. The type of SPIF work that they did that was eligible for energy efficiency items where it was environmental remediation, and obviously all those solar panels that you see on top with the very cool skyline view, and then also a solar powered water heater. So they were able to do this work and be reimbursed for it, and really hit those energy efficiency goals for their building. Next slide, please. So that was really a quick rundown of the two, sort of the main two elements that Summer Corps provides, which is going to be the SBA 504 loan, as well as City of Chicago grants that might work for your business to be able to increase your energy efficiency. I have sort of our full team here listed, but if you have additional questions, you're very welcome to just come and contact me directly, and we can kind of see what program would be the best fit for you. And with that, Kindy, I will stop talking and turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Kim. This was so helpful. I learned so much, and I hope our audience did too. I would love to open it up for questions. Do we have any? I also wanted to point out that we put a variety of links into the chat during your presentation. If you didn't have a chance to see those, we'll also include them in the follow-up materials as well. I didn't see any questions in the chat, but Kim, I wanted to ask a little bit about thinking through the loan process, and if there's other loan, you mentioned the SPIF and the NOF. Are there other loan products that you think our audience should be aware of?
Well, we at Summer Evercore, we don't necessarily focus on anything other than these.
Okay.
I think that a lot of people, there is another loan program called the SBA 7A loan. We don't
Okay.
do it. It's traditionally through your bank would be able to do it. The interesting thing about the 7A loan is that it typically has shorter terms. It could potentially be a variable rate. But the benefit
Okay.
is that you're able to use the capital for more flexible things. So while the 504 is really focused on making it, doing the fixed asset related expenses, a
Mhm.
7A could potentially be used for the working capital, operational things, things
Okay.
like that.
Great.
7A can be used also for some of the commercial real estate stuff. Maybe if you need both, sometimes that may be the better fit. But usually the 504 will get you the better rate and more savings.
That's great. I also wanted to share that there's a variety of ways to get an energy audit for those ComEd customers in the ComEd service area. They offer all businesses of any size free energy assessments. You can just go to their website. If you're interested in learning more like detailed information about that, the Hub just wrapped up our 3-part series with ComEd. One is just a very straightforward energy audit. They also have a variety of ways to retro commission your facility, and then also thinking about ways to make improvements to your mechanicals and other building features. So I will put my contact information in here too, but there's a lot of different resources. It might feel overwhelming to hear thinking about working with 2 lenders. Do you ever hear that, Kim, of folks having to work with 2 lenders and
Having,
what that could,
the
your
SBA
traditional
and then
lender? Yeah.
I think sometimes it may be in the beginning, but to be honest, if the program's been around for so long, and we at
Yeah.
Summercore have been doing it for 32 years, and
Wow.
we work with you every step of the way. And actually, I
Okay.
think lenders like working with us because we work with the SBA directly to try to smooth everything out. And I think for most people, you don't even notice it after a while. As your payments go, it doesn't really
That's great to
have a big
hear.
notice.
That's
Yeah.
great to hear.
And I did want to say for the energy audit, like take advantage of what Kindy is offering because again, you're going to need it if you're going to use the 504 green loan. But even if you're not sure, I think sometimes it can reveal very interesting things that can really help your business that might be easier fixes than you think. And it's worth it. It's worth it to take the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Not taking advantage of it is wasting money every month. People's Gas also does this, and if you're in Ameren territory, Ameren also, all of our utilities offer some sort of energy audit with a report for additional ways to save money and understand how to make sure that your building and your operations are most energy efficient. Well, last call for questions from our audience. I just wanted to share a little bit more information about the Hub. We are just trying to make sure that we are providing all of our resources in an easy to find, easy to understand way. We are always looking for volunteers for if you're an expert at energy audits, we will be providing some technical assistance. That program will start in 2025. It's great to see your case studies, Kim, so thank you for sharing those. But we also, as I mentioned earlier in our presentation, the newsletter is a great way to just stay in touch. It's a monthly newsletter. We don't share your information. And it's just the best way to learn more about all of these different emerging finance, in particular financial tools. We're on LinkedIn, and you can just send us questions as well. Our next Finance Friday is featuring DCEO. They have a really amazing energy futures grant that is a grant for pre-development. There's NOFO, the Notice of Funding Opportunity. They're having some listening sessions later this month, but join us on September 27th at 11 a.m. again. You can register for it on our website. And then we'll just be continuing to host Finance Fridays throughout until we don't have any new financial tools to talk about, but we know that there's the IRA is coming out with new tax credits, and how do we want to think about those in the mix when you're thinking about some of these financial tools? How do you make sure that you're also taking advantage of all the different tax incentives? And the Illinois Climate Bank, who is a partner of the Building Energy Resource Hub, has numerous new programs they'll be launching in the beginning of 2025. So please stay in touch, find a ways to make your operations the most efficient. And this is our QR code if you weren't able to grab our website link. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Big thanks to Kim and Summer Corps for sharing all this really wonderful information. And we look forward to seeing you at our next Finance Fridays. Bye.